20 years ago, Commander Tyler Walsh had stood in this exact same council chamber, fighting for humanity's freedom. Back then, the aliens had voted to lock humans away in their own solar system. Now, as emergency reports came flooding in from across the galaxy, Tyler's old warnings were coming true in the most terrifying way possible. Tyler remembered that day clearly. He had been younger then, full of hope that he could make the aliens understand. He had worn his best uniform and practiced his speech for weeks. But when he stood before the council, he could see the fear in their alien eyes. They had already made up their minds. Earth is what you call a Class XII Deathworld, Tyler had told them, his voice strong and clear. Do you know what that means? It means our planet tries to kill us every single day. Our babies are born into a world where the weather can freeze you solid or burn you alive. We're animals with teeth as long as your arm hunt in packs. We're diseases that would wipe out your entire species are just Tuesday for us. The aliens had shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Tyler kept talking. Our children don't just learn to walk and talk. They learn to fight. They learn to survive. They learn that when something tries to kill you, you kill it first. We've lived through ice ages that buried entire continents. We've survived plagues that killed half our population. We've fought predators that your people only see in nightmares. He had pointed at each alien representative as he spoke. You think you can contain that? You think you can put evolution in a cage and forget about it? You can't stop what millions of years of survival have created. But they hadn't listened. They voted to quarantine humanity anyway, believing they could keep the dangerous humans locked away in their corner of space. Now, 20 years later, Colonel Beth Martinez was sitting in a hidden command center deep inside an asteroid. For 2 decades, she had been pretending to run a simple mining operation. The aliens who occasionally visited thought she was just extracting valuable metals from rocks. They never suspected that beneath the mining equipment was one of humanity's most advanced military command centers. Beth looked at the screens around her, each one showing a different human outpost across the galaxy. What the aliens thought were research stations were actually weapon factories. What they believed were trading posts were really military bases. What they assumed were peaceful colonies were training grounds for humanity's deadliest soldiers. All stations, this is command, Beth spoke into her communication device. Authorization code Delta 779. Deathworld doctrine is now active. Across dozens of star systems, humans who have been pretending to be miners, scientists, and traders suddenly revealed their true nature. The quiet research station orbiting Jupiter opened up like a flower, revealing hundreds of warships that had been hidden inside. The mining platform near Mars split apart, showing massive cannons that could destroy entire fleets. Commander Rick Stone was aboard one of these hidden vessels. For 15 years, he had pretended to captain a cargo ship, moving supplies between human settlements. The alien customs officers who inspected his ship saw containers full of food, medicine, and tools. They never looked closely enough to see that the medical equipment could be assembled into weapons, or that the farming tools were actually pieces of advanced battle armor. "This is Captain Stone aboard the vessel you knew as the Peaceful Trader," he announced as his ship's true weapon systems came online. "Her real name is the Earth's Vengeance, and she's been waiting 20 years for this moment." All across space, similar transformations were happening. Ships that looked like peaceful explorers suddenly sprouted weapons. Stations that appeared to be simple outposts revealed themselves as fortresses. Humans who seemed like ordinary civilians put on military uniforms they had kept hidden for decades. The alien monitoring stations watched in shock as their sensors detected thousands of human warships appearing from nowhere. These weren't the small, peaceful vessels they had been tracking for years. These were monsters built for war, each one designed by people who understood that sometimes, survival means being more dangerous than anything trying to kill you. Lieutenant Amy Carter was monitoring alien communications from her hidden post on Europa. She could hear the panic in their voices as they tried to understand what was happening. "How did they hide so many ships?" one alien commander was asking. Where did they get the weapons? Another was demanding. Amy smiled as she listened. The aliens still didn't understand. They thought humans had somehow built a secret fleet in the last few months. They couldn't comprehend that humanity had been preparing for this day since the moment they were quarantined. Alert all vessels, Beth announced from her asteroid command center. Today we show the galaxy why Earth is called a death world. Today we prove that you can't cage evolution. Today we remind everyone that humans don't ask for help, we handle our own problems. The transformation was complete. Across the galaxy, humanity's true military might was finally revealed, and the aliens could only watch in terrified silence as they realized what they had created by trying to contain the most dangerous species in the universe. Captain Ryan Mitchell walked into the huge meeting room where aliens from across the galaxy were waiting. His face looked tired and worried. He had bad news that would shock everyone. The space stations that watched the edges of their territory had picked up something they had never seen before. It was a message from Earth's solar system, the place where humans lived but were kept separate from everyone else. Ryan cleared his throat and looked around the room. Representatives from dozens of different alien species sat in their special chairs, all waiting to hear what he had to say. Some had blue skin, others had scales, and some looked like giant insects. But they all had one thing in common right now, they were about to learn something terrifying. The message we received lasted exactly 47 seconds, Ryan said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. But those 47 seconds contained information that changes everything we thought we knew about the humans. He pressed a button on his small computer device. The sound that came out made every alien in the room freeze with fear. It was a human voice, calm and steady, but what it was saying made their blood run cold. Admiral Katie Brooks, the only human allowed to sit on the Galactic Council, watched as the alien faces changed from curious to confused to absolutely terrified. She had seen this message already, and she knew what was coming next. The voice on the recording continued, Ancient AI Weapon System Designated Destroyer Class has activated in Sector 7. All civilian populations in surrounding systems must evacuate immediately. This is not a request for assistance. Repeat, we are not asking for help. Counselor Veltar, a tall alien with bright blue scales covering his body, started shaking. His hands were trembling so much he could barely hold on to his chair. What does this mean? He asked in a whisper. Ryan looked directly at him. It means the humans found something old and deadly in their space. Something that was built by an ancient race to destroy entire planets. And instead of asking us to come save them, they're warning us to get out of the way. The aliens started talking all at once, their voices mixing together in a panic. Some were clicking, others were making whistling sounds, and a few were speaking in languages that sounded like music. But Katie could tell they were all saying the same thing, they were scared. Why aren't they asking for help? Asked another counselor, this one looking like a giant bird with silver feathers. Every species calls for backup when they face something like this. Katie stood up slowly. Everyone turned to look at her. Because, she said, you don't understand what humans are. You've kept us locked away in our solar system for 50 years because you were afraid of us. You called our planet a death world because it was too dangerous. You said we were too violent, too aggressive, too willing to fight. She walked to the center of the room, and every alien eye followed her. Well, now you're about to see why Earth made us this way. We don't call for help because we don't need it. We handle our own problems, no matter how big they are. The recording continued playing, and the human voice spoke again. This time, the words made several aliens fall out of their chairs in shock. Final protocol authorized. All Terran defense fleets are now active. Estimated time to target elimination, 72 hours. All non-human vessels must clear the operational zone immediately. The room went completely quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Then Veltar spoke up, his voice barely audible. Final protocol. What is final protocol? Katie smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a predator gives right before it strikes. That's what we call it when we stop pretending to be peaceful. For 50 years, you've thought we only had a few old ships and some mining stations. You were wrong. She pressed another button, and a holographic display appeared in the air above them. It showed a map of space around Earth. Suddenly, thousands of red dots appeared, each one representing a human warship. These ships have been hiding in asteroids, behind moons, in the dark spaces between planets. Every human you thought was just a miner or a scientist or a trader was actually a soldier. We've been preparing for this day since you locked us away. The alien stared at the display in horror. There were so many ships that the red dots looked like a cloud of blood spreading across space. But why, whispered the bird-like counselor. Why prepare for war if you were quarantined? Ryan stepped forward again. Because we knew that someday, something would threaten not just us, but everyone. And when that day came, we wanted to be ready to protect the galaxy, even if the galaxy didn't want our protection. The final part of the human message played. The voice was still calm, but now there was something else in it, determination. This is Commander Tyler Hayes of the human fleet. We go to end this threat. Do not follow us. Do not try to help us. Just stay out of our way and let us do what Earth taught us to do. As the message ended, every alien in the room realized the same terrible truth. The humans weren't victims asking for rescue. They were predators preparing for the hunt. Admiral Kyle Hayes stood on the command deck of his massive warship, looking out at the incredible sight before him. Hundreds of human vessels were moving into perfect battle formation, each one a masterpiece of destruction that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. His ship, the Terra's Vengeance, was the largest of them all, built in secret deep inside an asteroid mine where no alien eyes could see it. Every ship in the fleet told a story of human history. The Normandy's thunder was painted with the colors of the beaches where humans had fought against impossible odds and won. The Gettysburg's fury bore the marks of a battle that had torn a nation apart but made it stronger. The Pearl Harbor's revenge gleamed with weapons that promised no enemy would ever catch humanity sleeping again. These weren't just names painted on metal. They were reminders of every time humans had faced something bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than themselves and refused to give up. Each ship carried the spirit of every human who had ever stood up to a bully, fought against unfair odds, or died protecting something they loved. Give me a status report on our forces, Kyle commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge where dozens of officers were working at their stations. Lieutenant Jessica Brooks looked up from her computer screens, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed the position of every human ship in space. Sir, we have 2,000 combat vessels fully operational and ready for battle. All crew members are at their stations and reporting ready for action. Our battle groups include ram ships, breaker vessels, and planet crackers. Kyle nodded. The ram ships were exactly what they sounded like, vessels designed to crash into enemy ships at incredible speeds and tear them apart. The breaker vessels carried weapons that could punch holes through the strongest armor. And the planet crackers, well, their names said everything you needed to know about what they could do. The communication system came alive with voices from across human space. These were commanders who had spent their entire adult lives preparing for this exact moment. They had trained in secret, built weapons in hidden factories, and practiced battle strategies that the aliens thought were just war games. This is Captain Danny Wright aboard the Pacific Fury, came one voice. My crew is ready to show these machines what human determination looks like. Major Lisa Chen here, commanding the assault wing, announced another voice. We've been waiting 20 years for this fight. Let's make it count. Commander Alex Rodriguez reporting from the Heavy Destroyer Group, called a third voice. Our guns are loaded and our crews are hungry for battle. Kyle listened to each report with pride. These weren't just military officers, they were the best of humanity. Each one had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their refusal to quit when things got tough. They were the children and grandchildren of people who had survived Earth's worst disasters and come out stronger. The communication channels buzzed with activity as more commanders checked in. Captain Mike Sullivan from the Stealth Squadron, Colonel Patricia Davis from the Marine Assault Ships, Commander Steve Johnson from the Heavy Artillery Group. Each name represented years of secret training and preparation. Kyle opened a channel to address the entire fleet. His voice would reach every human ship, every crew member, every person who had volunteered to risk their life for the galaxy that had rejected them. "This is Admiral Hayes speaking to all human forces," he began, his words carrying the weight of history. "Today we face an enemy that almost destroyed the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known. An artificial intelligence that was built to wipe out all living things. It's been sleeping for thousands of years, but now it's awake, and it's hungry." He paused, looking out at his fleet. Each ship represented the dreams and hopes of humanity. They were built by people who believed that someday, humans would need to stand up and protect not just themselves, but everyone. The aliens who quarantined us thought we were too dangerous to be trusted with the rest of the galaxy. They were afraid of what we might do if we were free. Well, today they're going to find out what we do when the people we care about are in danger. Kyle's voice grew stronger, carrying the passion of every human who had ever refused to back down from a fight. "We're not fighting for glory. We're not fighting for conquest. We're fighting because it's the right thing to do. Because when something threatens innocent people, humans don't hide. We don't run. We don't ask someone else to handle it. We stand up, we fight back, and we don't stop until the threat is gone." The response came from every ship in the fleet at exactly the same time. Thousands of human voices joined together in a battle cry that had never been heard before but felt as old as humanity itself. "For Earth and all her children." The sound echoed across space, carried by radio waves to every corner of the galaxy. It was a promise, a threat, and a declaration all rolled into one. The human fleet was awake, and they were coming. The battle started at the edge of the Kepler star system, where something horrifying was happening. Giant machine ships, each one the size of a small moon, were literally eating entire planets. They would surround a world with their metal arms and strip away everything, the atmosphere, the oceans, the land itself, until nothing was left but empty space. Captain Ryan Mitchell watched these monster machines through his ship's viewscreen and felt his blood boil. His destroyer squadron had been chosen to make the first attack, and he knew it was basically a suicide mission. But that didn't matter. Someone had to hit these things first, and humans had never been good at backing down from a fight. "All ships, this is Captain Mitchell aboard the Iron Fury," he spoke into his communication device. "We're going in fast and hard. Remember what we practiced: maximum speed, maximum damage. Make every shot count." His ships accelerated to speeds that would have turned any alien crew into paste. Human bodies could barely handle the pressure, but they had trained for this. Every pilot had pushed themselves to the absolute limit of what their bodies could survive, because they knew that someday they might need to fly faster than physics said was safe. "This is the Iron Fury," Ryan announced as his ship's engines began to overload from the incredible speed. "Beginning ramming approach on the big target. Boys, it's been an honor serving with you." What happened next defied everything the galaxy thought they knew about space combat. Ryan's ship, with its engines screaming and its hull cracking from the stress, slammed into the giant AI mothership at nearly the speed of light. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from 3 star systems away. It lit up space like a new sun had just been born. Commander Katie Walsh was watching from the bridge of her ship, the Human Spirit, when she saw Ryan's sacrifice. She had known him since they were both young officers, had served with him for 15 years. Now he was gone, but he had taken one of the enemy's biggest ships with him. "That's how we do it," she said quietly, then raised her voice to address her crew. "You see that? That's what humans do when something threatens innocent people. We don't calculate odds. We don't worry about survival rates. We just do whatever it takes to stop the bad guys." The AI machines were confused. They had been built by an ancient race to fight logical, sensible opponents who would retreat when faced with superior numbers. They were programmed to expect enemies who would try to preserve their forces, who would fall back and regroup when taking heavy losses. But humans didn't fight that way. Instead of retreating, they accelerated toward the enemy. Instead of trying to save their ships, they used them as weapons. The AI computers kept trying to predict human behavior and failing, because you can't program a computer to understand someone who's willing to die for strangers. All weapons, fire at will. Katie ordered as her own ship took a direct hit that tore a huge hole in the side. Warning lights flashed red across her bridge, and she could hear the sound of air rushing out into space. If we're going down, we're taking as many of these metal monsters with us as possible. Throughout the battle zone, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships that were too damaged to keep fighting would change course and ram themselves into enemy vessels. Captains who had lost their weapons would use their ships as giant bullets. Crews who were trapped on dying vessels would sing old Earth songs as they aimed their ships at the biggest enemy target they could find. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Hayes was leading a boarding party through the corridors of an AI ship they had managed to crack open. His soldiers carried simple rifles and wore basic body armor, nothing fancy or high-tech. But they had something the machines couldn't understand: they were fighting angry. "Keep moving!" Danny shouted as his team fought through hallways filled with killer robots. "These things killed Captain Mitchell, and they're trying to eat inhabited planets. I don't care if there's 1,000 of them, we're going to tear this ship apart with our bare hands if we have to." Major Lisa Rodriguez was commanding a squadron of small fighter ships that were making kamikaze runs against the AI fleet. Her pilots had been trained to find the weak spots in enemy vessels and fly straight into them, turning their own ships into guided missiles. "This is Red Squadron," Lisa announced as she lined up for her final attack run. "We're going to clear this entire sector. See you all in the next life." The AI forces had every advantage: bigger ships, more weapons, stronger armor, superior numbers. By every logical calculation, they should have won the battle in the first few minutes. But logic didn't account for human stubbornness. It didn't factor in the willingness to die for something bigger than yourself. It couldn't predict people who would sing while their ships burned around them. As the battle raged on, the AI began to realize it had made a terrible mistake. It had awakened expecting to fight a galaxy full of reasonable, self-preserving species. Instead, it had woken up a sleeping giant that didn't know how to quit, didn't understand the word surrender, and would rather die fighting than live in a galaxy where innocent people weren't safe. The humans kept coming, wave after wave, each one more determined than the last. 3 days had passed since the last enemy machine stopped moving, stopped shooting, stopped trying to destroy everything living in the galaxy. The silence felt strange after so much noise and violence. General Tyler Carter stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking out at what remained of the greatest space battle in galactic history. The view outside his window told the whole story. Where once there had been 2,000 human warships ready for battle, now only scattered groups of damaged vessels drifted through space. Some ships were missing entire sections, held together by emergency repairs and the stubborn refusal of their crews to give up. Others were so badly damaged they could barely move, but their crews kept them running through sheer willpower. Tyler had been a soldier for 30 years, had seen plenty of battles, but nothing had prepared him for this. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humanity had ever experienced. Entire fleets had been wiped out in minutes. Ships that had taken decades to build had been turned into scrap metal in seconds. "Give me the numbers," Tyler said quietly to his aide, not really wanting to hear the answer but needing to know. Major Lisa Chen looked at her reports, her hands shaking slightly as she read the data. She had been awake for 3 straight days, helping coordinate rescue operations and trying to account for every human ship and crew member. Her voice was steady, but Tyler could hear the exhaustion and grief behind her words. "Sir, we started this battle with 2,000 combat vessels and over 500,000 crew members," she began. "Currently, we have 437 ships that are still able to fight, and maybe 200 more that can limp home for repairs. Total military casualties are 78%. Tyler closed his eyes for a moment. 78%. That meant more than 3 out of every 4 humans who had joined this battle were never going home. They had volunteered to fight an enemy that no one really understood, against odds that any sane person would call impossible, and they had paid the ultimate price. What about civilian casualties? Tyler asked, though he already suspected the answer. Minimal, sir, Lisa replied with something that might have been pride in her voice. The AI never got close enough to any populated worlds to cause significant damage. Every inhabited planet in the affected sectors is safe. That was what mattered, Tyler realized. That was why all those humans had been willing to die. Not for glory, not for conquest, not even for revenge. They had fought and died to protect people they would never meet, on worlds they would never see. The communication system buzzed, and Tyler heard that alien ships were approaching. The Galactic Council had finally sent their relief fleet, though they were arriving after the battle was already over. Tyler wondered what they would think when they saw what humanity had accomplished, and what it had cost. Captain Amy Rodriguez met the alien commanders when they docked with the human flagship. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, some of it hers, some from the wounded crew members she had helped treat. Her left arm was in a makeshift sling, and she had a bandage covering half her face, but she stood straight and proud as she greeted the aliens. The alien commander, a tall creature with purple skin and too many eyes, looked around at the damage to the human ship with obvious shock. We came as soon as we could mobilize our forces," he stammered. "Our medical ships can treat your wounded, and our repair vessels can help fix your ships." Amy smiled, though it hurt her cut lip to do it. "That's very kind of you, but we'll take care of our own people. We always have." The alien looked confused. "But you've suffered such terrible losses. Surely you need assistance." "We need to honor our dead by taking care of our living," Amy replied firmly. "It's what humans do. We clean up our own messes, we bury our own dead, and we take care of our own wounded. But thank you for offering." As the alien relief ships departed, looking more puzzled than helpful, Admiral Rick Hayes was updating humanity's file in the galactic computer system. For 50 years, humans had been listed as dangerous primitives and quarantined species. Now, as Rick typed the new classification, he couldn't help but smile. Species designation, human. Classification, essential defense asset. Deployment authorized only for extinction-level galactic threats. Warning, extremely high casualty rates expected. Caution, do not attempt to contain or restrict. Note, will sacrifice everything to protect others. Back on the ruins of what had been the AI's main base, something beautiful was happening. Human children who had been evacuated from nearby colonies were already returning with their families. They played games among the twisted metal wreckage, turning pieces of destroyed war machines into toys and jungle gyms. One little girl found a chunk of armor that had come from a human ship. She couldn't read the name painted on it, but her father explained that it said, "Earth's Pride." She asked him what that meant, and he told her about the brave people who had flown that ship into battle knowing they probably wouldn't come home. As the sun set over the battlefield, the children sang songs their parents and grandparents had taught them. Songs about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Songs about humans who faced impossible odds and somehow found a way to win. Songs about the price of freedom and the cost of protecting others. The galaxy was safe now. The ancient evil that had threatened to destroy all life was gone forever. And everyone knew who had paid the price to make that happen. It had been paid in human courage, human sacrifice, and human blood. Just like it always was when the galaxy needed saving.